Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Talkin' Jazz. And who better to talk jazz with? He's back. Mr. Mike Antonelli is here with us today. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm great. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me back on the show. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute, but this show, this particular show on the channel now, which is new, this is only our third episode, I think is a perfect vehicle for you to pop in on fairly frequently because I think you know a little bit about jazz, right, Mike?
Well, I hope so. Studying it for a long
I was
time.
gonna say you've dedicated most of your life to it, so yeah, I think you're a good guy for the job here. So,
Yeah.
and I contacted Mike because when I started up this Talking Jazz series, I had in my mind certain artists that I'd like to do little retrospectives on. And, we'll also do like record labels and things like that. We did an ECM show the last month. I'm going to talk to Mike about maybe doing a Blue Note episode in the not too distant future. But I really want to give some love to Wayne Shorter because we lost him not all that long ago. And man, what a great career he's had. And we've talked about him before on the show. We've done shows together where we've talked about Wayne Shorter. And I figure, wouldn't it be good to kind of give him a nice little tribute and just take a look at his career because what a career, right, Mike? I mean, he's played with
Oh,
greats. He's
amazing.
pumped out some great solo records. So we'll kind of go through the career of Wayne Shorter and a lot of the bands he's played with. We'll also talk about some of our favorite Wayne Shorter solo records. And I think Mike has really kind of laid out the whole episode pretty well. So I'm going to kind of maybe defer to him a lot on this particular episode here as we kind of go through the career of Wayne, which, really he got his start, I mean, we got to give it up to Art Blakey, who kind of brought him into the band in 1959 with the Messengers. And, Wayne played on classic albums like A Night in Tunisia and Mosaic and Witch Doctor. And he appeared on over 20 albums with Art Blakey. And I always kind of saw Art Blakey and guys like Miles Davis as very similar in that they would bring these young musicians into their bands and give them the kind of introduction to doing this sort of thing so they can go out on their own and do other things. And I think, Wayne probably learned a lot playing with Art Blakey because that kind of springboarded him into a lot of other things from there.
Yeah, Art Blakey and Miles Davis, of course, these guys were kind of the school of jazz in the 50s. They were
Yeah.
the first educators of, people who came out of music training or non-music training, or just people who came off the street and had exceptional talent. You know, the College of Jazz in the early 50s, before the mainstream schools initiated programs, were guys like, we talked about, like Art Blakey and Miles Davis. They found and handpicked the best young musicians to put on the stage.
Yeah.
It's almost like being on the Ed Sullivan Show was for so many young actors and musicians. To this is your ticket to the modern scene. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, for
if
sure.
you Art Blakey wants you to play in his band, you say no. You might as well go out and learn how to make banjos or something, because you turn down Art Blakey.
Can't
So
do it, right?
if you're a jazz musician,
Yeah. And I'm sure like all those albums that he did with Art early on probably is what brought him to his attention, right? I mean, Miles was probably like, I got to get that guy in my bag, in his voice, right? I got to get that guy.
yeah, and if you watch it's very informative, that documentary that was made started in 2015 about um, Wayne Shorter, which is called Zero Gravity. It's a three-part series available on Prime Video. And I got to be honest, I watched all three episodes again about a few days before this show, just to refresh my memory. There's so many great things about his life. And a lot of it has to do with his life from they don't touch too much on the Art Blakey days and so forth, but it's on his current, what was his current status and so forth. And um, the guy was a very serious composer.
Yes.
And I would say that his technique on the saxophone brought him into prominence. If I had just one thing to say about Wayne Shorter, but his compositional skills kept him on the scene forever. Kind of like Benny Golson. I mean, that kind of thing. Wayne is so much a serious composer of music and has been throughout his whole life. It doesn't matter what genre, pure jazz or fusion or straight ahead. Or one thing that I noticed about Wayne Shorter is that his compositions are very unique in that they tell the story of his life. He's not a big guy for contrafacts, which are songs that are written to popular chord progressions, and you just change the melody. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but that's how Charlie Parker made his imprint, was from taking his language and applying it to a language that songs that were already in existence. But that's not Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter.
I would agree with you. I think Wayne, his legacy is more so than his technical skills on the instrument, has been his songwriting, his compositional skills. You're right, because you generally don't hear him being discussed up there with guys like Coltrane or Brecker, right? As far as like the technical proficiency on the instrument.
Right.
But could those guys touch him from a songwriting perspective? Probably not, right?
Yeah. I would like to make a comparison, like say, to Charlie Parker. Wayne was a visionary. He had this vision of making music that represented his life and his life experiences. I think that's what draws me to him more than the technique. Although Sonny Stitt tried to cut him on stage one time, and he really discovered him back in the early 50s and called him up and played some tune like Sonny Stitt traditionally did, and tried to, and played it in like G flat or some obscure key, and Wayne just tore it up. And the story goes that Sonny Stitt looked at him and goes, "Okay, all right," and he was technically a virtuoso of the instrument at a young age. So that's a point about Wayne Shorter that I didn't realize until I really dug a lot deeper into the music. So, like, say, to compare him to Charlie Parker, where I was going with this, let's say Parker brought a brand new, let's say, palette of exotic colors to an existing portrait. So he saw a painting there and he redid it with his own colors. Where he wanted to show what was possible, Wayne took his colors and put them on the blank canvas. Okay, so if you can make that analogy, that's to me how each one of those innovators was unique in their own way, which at the time, 60s, that when Wayne was coming into prominence, that everybody was searching, looking for new ways to say, there's only 12 notes, right? How do you organize them? What do you have to say?
Yeah, exactly. And I think his compositional skills were peaking pretty early too. I mean, look at how many of his songs were included in some of these Miles Davis records that we're going to talk about shortly. I mean, they became kind of standards in that band, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's I forget where this story came from, but there's a story. I heard it. So maybe it was in the documentary where Miles said, call him up, said, "Wayne, we're recording on Wednesday or whatever. Bring the book." Like he didn't have anything. He's like, "Wayne, you come, bring your notes, and we're going to make something out of that." And excuse me, I think that that says a lot.
Yeah.
Miles Davis wants to pick your brain and see what you have to offer, yeah.
He knew what he had, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
in that band, it wasn't just Wayne Shorter, right? Because look at the rest of the guys in that band.
So I'm going to make a point about that later on too.
Okay.
How it was a tight knit community. Everybody interacted and overlapped, and yeah. So.
All right, so Mike, why don't we start talking some albums here that I want to share with everybody? So I'll have you get started here. So.
All right, so the first one that I like to talk, I have his discography here, and I'm going to refer to that. You see me shuffling around. So the recording date was 1959, and the record. This is a. Oh, sorry about that. I had that on silent. Sorry about that.
Mike's a busy guy.
Yeah, no, that was not. That was not. Let me just fix this, Pete, so we don't get interrupted again. Sorry, Pete.
That's okay.
There we go. So, introducing Wayne Shorter. This is a reissue from the original recording. It was made in 1959. Can you see? Oh, there it is.
We go.
Introducing Wayne Shorter.
Look at how young he looks. Look at that.
Yeah. And personnel on this record is basically it's Wayne Shorter on tenor sax, Lee Morgan on trumpet, Wynton Kelly piano, Paul Chambers on bass, Jimmy Cobb on drums. So that trio, Wynton Kelly trio, was at the time working with Miles Davis, and Lee Morgan was, of course, his bandmate from Art Blakey. So this is a two-horn lineup with a trio, and of course, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb also were working with Coltrane after Miles, or during the time of Miles as well. So this is kind of like a version of the John Coltrane Quartet with Wayne Shorter instead of Coltrane, right? It's pretty much a standard, I would say, hard bop reference. Well, Wayne doesn't go too outside the box here in this record, but it gives you good, like, starting up position. If you want to know about Wayne Shorter, it's a good place to start, because this is basically a roots record for me. This is where he came from, right? This is before he went into experimenting with different things, and he's very much a great player in this, on this recording, and it features all of his compositions except for one by Wynton Kelly called Wrinkles at the end, and a version of Mac the Knife, which is interesting because you don't hear Wayne playing many contrafacts with his own melodies, and for him to do a standard and just something about that tune that a lot of jazz players, I know Sonny Rollins did a version of it as well around the same time period, and he called it something else by a different name. I don't recall the name of it right now, but you can look it up. Sonny Rollins playing Mac the Knife. And so anyway, that's where I start with Wayne Shorter. So that's when he was with Art Blakey.
So you said that album was what, 59, you said?
59. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah,
right.
they did A Night in Tunisia like the next year, which was 1960, and that's considered like the standard Blakey Jazz Messenger album. Very cool. What else you got?
All right, so then I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to skip over the Art Blakey years, unless you have some records to add to that.
No, just the ones that I mentioned are my favorites. I mean, A Night in Tunisia and Mosaic to me are the two pinnacle. That's from 1960 and 1962. But don't sleep on Witch Doctor, which comes in 1967. But there's like over 20 to choose from. I mean, he was very, very busy during this time period, so he did a lot with Blakey. So check any of them out.
So he was with Blakey from 59 to 64.
Yep.
From my notes. I'm going to start with 1964, and I don't know if this is exactly when he joined Miles Davis or right before, but this was recorded in 1964, right after, it's a second album under Blue Note. The first one was Night Dreamer, and the second one is called Juju. Which the title, oh, you have it, yes, one of yours, okay. Yeah.
Great album.
A great album. And this is interesting because during the Blue Note years, he used basically two different piano players. He used Herbie and he used McCoy. And he also used three different drummers.
Yep.
So this one was with Elvin Jones and Reggie Workman. Reggie, of course, was from the Blakey years, his collaboration with him, and of course, McCoy Tyner. Again, it's like kind of Coltrane Coltrane-esque, except it sounds nothing like what Coltrane was playing at the time. All right, so this was, Coltrane's into, this was before his death, but he was into the, Love Supreme sound and all that mystical, spiritual type music that he was playing at the time, right? So to me, this is a more approachable album for people who like the adventurous side of Wayne Shorter, and when he started to branch out and do some things that were more like sound painting. He describes these pieces in here. Juju is a synonym for voodoo. So he's thinking of an African chant and a voodoo ceremony. So he's trying to paint that picture. Deluge, of course, is the feeling of something coming down, descending octaves, and then overflowing. In a way, it's musically analogous to rain, right? So all kinds of songs where he's painting pictures with his music and his composition. That's why I picked that one first.
Yeah, I have it on my list too. I really like this album a lot, and I think McCoy Tyner's piano work is exceptional on this record. I mean, he's amazing anyway, right? We know that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
title track is so good. I think Deluge is wonderful. It's so melodic. It's so memorable. House of Jade is great. I like Mahjong is really, it might even be my favorite song on here. It's kind of mysterious sounding, you
Yeah.
know. Elvis,
So go ahead. So he wrote that song, according to the liner notes here, that he wrote that thinking of the Chinese game Mahjong.
yep, yep.
And he said, he was thinking musically how I never played the game, so I don't really know. But I guess everything is grouped in groups of four, and so he structured his piece that way. It was a very thought out composition as far as symbolically to the game, I guess, in his mind.
Yeah, it's definitely has a different feel to everything else on the album. It's got this kind of mysterious quality to it, and I love the drumming on it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yes or No is great. And 12 more bars to go is again kind of a little bit more laid back, kind of groovy. I like it quite a bit. And I think this album it's a nice fit in his catalog because, and especially the year it came out, because he does more albums that are much, much more melodic and a little more laid back with more stronger melodies and compositions. But it's also not like the stuff he was doing at the end of the decade into the early 70s before Weather Report started, which is much more along the lines of like what Miles was starting to do, right? With In a Silent Way and Bitches Brew. So I think this is like a nice blend of all that stuff. It's one of my favorites from him. It's really, really good. I'm happy
Yeah.
we picked it because it deserved to be picked here.
Yeah. Yeah. Good one.
Yeah. All right. What else you got?
All right. So from the same time period, I'm sticking with Blue Note here. I'm curious about this because um, yeah, this is called the Soothsayer, and it's interesting to me because it's basically the VSOP quartet from the late 70s with the addition of James Spaulding and with McCoy Tyner uh, instead of Herbie Hancock.
Yep.
All right. So to me, this is interesting because it was not released until 1979. So
Yeah.
maybe like a lost recording or something they just buried. It was recorded in 65. It was recorded right after Speak No Evil. Yeah. The Soothsayer. And I guess it's a Blue Note Classic reissue.
Yeah.
My cover's different than yours, but
Isn't it crazy that this sat on the shelf for so long?
yeah,
Considering the lineup, uh,
yeah.
you know,
It's so different and so cool. I love the first track, Lost.
oh, Lost is great. Yeah.
And then what he does on Lady Day is so reminiscent of like Infant Eyes and those kind of the really stretchy, lovely ballads that he's famous for playing and composing. This is dedicated to Billie Holiday, and I don't know why that wasn't put out there. previously. And so many years went by, right? So anyway, that's my next one on Blue Note. James Spaulding, I can't say enough about the collaboration
Oh yeah,
with
yeah.
him and Freddie Hubbard. Oh man.
Freddie Hubbard is amazing. Yeah,
And Wayne writes, he writes so well for horns. Don't forget he was an arranger for Maynard Ferguson for a short period of time when he first came on the scene. So he has the arranging skills, and he's got quite a great way of writing for horns as well, several horns.
yep, very cool. Yeah, it's a really good album. There's a really great soloing on it. I love Angola. It's another really good track. That's more of like kind of like a blazer of a track. Really, really good. So good. Really good. All right, I'll throw one in here. How about the All-Seeing Eye,
Yeah,
1965? Also Blue Note. Boy, we're
yeah,
doing pretty much doing a Blue Note show here. So again, this has got Freddie Hubbard is back with him on this particular recording. You got Alan Shorter on flugelhorn, Grosjean Moncourt III on trombone. This is like a big band album almost, if you could call any of his albums that. Spaulding is back on this one as well. You got Wayne, Herbie, Ron Carter, and Joe Chambers on drums.
right. That's the third drummer that he used during the Blue Notes sessions.
Correct. And Joe Chambers, I mean, we've talked about Joe Chambers in previous jazz episodes we've done together, another guy who was very, very busy on the scene. And some of these guys I think were on had Rudy Van Gelder had them on speed dial, right? It's like, hey, we could use someone over here. Come on down to the studio. Um, but yeah, this is a really good one. The opening title track is totally epic. It's over 10 minutes long. So good. And I tell you, the the work that he does with Spaulding on these that they played together is just really, really good stuff. Um, and the soloing is amazing. There's great Herbie Hancock solos on that particular track as well. Genesis, another masterful composition. It's just so memorable. And I love the fact that the way he writes these songs, there's hooks in there, but then they throw you in all those kind of tasty swirling solos that you want from jazz anyway, right? So it's like it's not easy to make memorable jazz, instrumental songs in general, especially not this type of music. I love that the horns are big and up front. Like I said, it's got kind of like a big band feel in spots. Um, Chaos is totally energetic and incredible. And then you got Face of the Deep, which is a little bit more somber. So there's a lot of different kind of styles and feels on this album. And then Mephistopheles, however the hell you say that, that's kind of like got this ominous feel to it. It's like a nice slow builder of the song. Really, really strong album. I like this one a lot. And the production on all these albums is really, really great, considering the time period, right?
Yeah. Well, Blue Note. I
Yeah,
mean,
these Blue Note albums sound amazing. You feel like you're right there in the room with them, which is really, really
and
cool.
Gelder, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, All Seeing Eye is my next pick.
So that was followed by Adam's Apple in
Yep.
1966, released in 67. And then you have that. Is that your next one?
No, I just have a whole bunch of them here. So yeah, that's a really good one.
So why don't you talk about that one? Because I like that one as well. So after that, I picked this one, Schizophrenia. Um, every tune on here is amazing to me. I love the Tom Thumb, the opening one, and again, this is writing for Spaulding and Curtis Fuller um, on trombone. James Spaulding also plays some flute on this album. Of course, Wayne and the rhythm section of Herbie, Ron Carter, and Joe Chambers. Again, Joe Chambers, there he is. So this was released in 1969, recorded in 1967 on Blue Note. The opening track on here, Tom Thumb, it's just to me a really bouncy, lyrical, great, great song that it's got a really catchy melody that you can remember, and some great, outstanding writing as far as I'm concerned. Um, again, one last time on this album, there he was voted the year before actually, voted the composer most deserving of wider recognition in the annual critics poll, which later was to ask these questions. The critics had nominated him not because of any desire on his part, but rather because they heard him as a writer of integrity and authority, a man true to his own tenets.
Yep.
So what's a better commentary than that? I mean, from the critics to say, hey, let's take this guy seriously. Look at his writing. You know, I think that was a and again, this is when he's playing with Miles, right? He's still with Miles here. So Miles Davis had a lot to do with Wayne's direction in music. As Wayne complimented Miles, so did Miles compliment Wayne and gave Wayne the freedom and the stage to explore his own style and come into his own, basically.
And for those asking, like, how did he have time to go make these solo records while he was in that great Miles Davis band? I mean, this is a different time. These artists and bands were not going into the studio and spending 6, 8 months in the studio to make albums. They were knocking these things out over weekends, right? So
Yeah.
it's so in between gigs and things like that. This is a different time. It's a different, the jazz artists were not like some of the rock bands of the time who like meticulously went into the studio and recreate. This was very different, very spontaneous type of recordings. And so many of these classic albums that we talk about were done in a day or two, maybe 3 or 4 tops, right?
And resulting from jam sessions where
Yes, 100%. Yep.
they come in with a few penciled notes about, hey, I'd like to write this song goes about like this. We start with this theme, and they just organically develop these things in the studio. And of course they play all night, and then they show up in the studio the next morning, or 12 noon or 1 o'clock p.m. and they record it. They record till 6 or 7 o'clock, and they go play the gig starting at 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
Yep.
So this is what they did. This
Yeah.
is all they did.
Yep.
They
And
played
the producer took what they made, what they put together, what they recorded, like, okay, boom, we got an album here. That's it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's
So
it's kind of it's kind of foreign to like, today's way of making albums. It's
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a
yeah.
good Well, you brought it up before, so I'll give it some love here. Let's talk a little bit about Adam's Apple. So, this is another really good one from the same time period. So, Wayne on tenor, Herbie on piano, Reggie Workman on bass, and Joe Chambers on drums. So, the four-piece Blue Note Records. Again, more great songwriting on here. And I think this is again because he's working with just a four-piece, the quartet here. It's very tight songs. And I think the opening title track really swings and grooves really nicely. I love 502 Blues. It's got kind of like that sultry feel to it. El Gaucho's got this really cool kind of like Latin groove thing going on, which I almost wish he did more of. I think that works really well here. And then, of course, this has I believe, the first ever appearance of Footprints, which became one of his absolutely classic, beloved tracks, which later will appear on Miles Smiles, which arguably even better on that album because look at the lineup, right? But yeah, really, really good album here. Chief Crazy Horse is another really good one on this album. Very, very good. If Don't sleep on this album, folks. If you're looking to go get some Wayne shorter stuff, definitely get it. And I will show it now because I'll forget to. If anybody sees this out in the wild, if you're mainly a CD person, this is Wayne Shorter, 5 original albums, all Blue Note recordings. It's got Night Dreamer, The Soothsayer, which Mike talked about before, etc., Adam's Apple, and Schizophrenia. So it's cheap. So if you want to get like a bunch of these, that's an easy way to go get them. So anyway, back to you.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. There's so many to pick from, and again, you originally told me 10. I had a tough time as usual. Pete, I have to say, your assignments are tougher than any assignments that I ever gave as a teacher.
I would be lying if I said that that's the first time that I've ever been told that because it's
I have to go back to school literally every time I get an assignment from you, and not as a student, but as a teacher, because if a teacher doesn't do his homework, you've got nothing to tell your students that's worthwhile, right? So
I know.
thank you for sending
But at
me.
least I give you a little bit of time, right? It's like I don't. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, Mike, are you free next week? We got to do a Wayne Shorter show. I usually try to give you at least a month or more. So yeah.
Well, God willing, I'll still be around for the next assignment. Because nobody knows how much time we have left on the clock. But
Hopefully, plenty.
yeah,
Hopefully.
hopefully plenty. But so far, so good. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to go back to the Miles, um, influence, and I'm going to go to 1965, which is right in the middle of the period that we're talking about. That it's recording for Blue Note. Is this Miles Davis record called ESP?
Yep.
Right, and it's got Miles's first wife or second wife on the cover there. And this features this is a quintessential record from Miles's second great quintet with Miles, Wayne, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, and Herbie Hancock, and of course the rhythm section would be with Wayne throughout a lot of his future recordings, especially Herbie Hancock and Wayne became best friends from that association with Miles. Tony Williams, of course, passed, and Ron Carter went on to record with so many different people. Very much in-demand bass player. But this record right here features some of Wayne's compositions on it, some from Ron Carter. The title track, ESP, is a Wayne, a very up-tempo, really cool Wayne composition. I can't say enough about this album. This really epitomizes to me the direction that they were going, they're searching for, and they kind of put it all together with this record. I really enjoyed this one.
I would argue that every album that ensemble did together is pretty amazing. I did a show on the channel here like a week ago where I talked about my 20 favorite like band lineups of all time, like any style of music. That lineup made my list because how could it not? It's like one of the best bands of all time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's special. And they stayed together for a few years.
Yeah. He was with Miles for 4 or 5 years, 64 through 68.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, ESP is quite good.
Yep. Cool. So there's that one. Next, this is going to throw you off a little bit.
Okay.
You know how I like to find these obscure albums that say, well, why was, especially if the recording date is so much different than the actual release date. So kind of like the lost recordings or whatever. There's an album here that I found from that same time period. This was in 1967. Wasn't released till 1976 from Columbia Records. And this is exclusively Wayne Shorter compositions on here. This is called Water Babies.
Great album.
Yeah. And to me, it's very exploratory in the fact, or in the sense that it sounds like tunes that are just put together organically, and they don't really, to me, have like an identifiable at first listen form. It sounded like they're just meanderings, but not to the point where it's boring. It's very purposeful, and where motifs are developed, almost like you would hear, like a classical symphony unfold, where there are certain motifs and they develop and they go places that you didn't expect them to go. So I don't want to say that it's, random, but you could tell that it was not composed. It was composed on the spot, which is very interesting. And maybe that's why it wasn't released. It's Miles, Herbie, Tony, Ron Carter, and Wayne on side one. And on side two, Chick Corea and Dave Holland replace Herbie Hancock and Ron Carter on side two of this album.
And that album is bleeding into the In a Silent Way era, right? Because there's
Yeah.
stuff on there that sounds like it came from that early fusion time
Yes.
where everything was getting electrified, right? Yeah.
And I think this was maybe a stepping stone where Wayne started to get some ideas that were manifest when he hooked up with Zawinul.
Yep.
This is pre-Weather Report, but man, it sounds like it's going there.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
It totally does. And I think the reason why that finally saw the light of day and was released was because Weather Report was becoming pretty popular. And there was still this, because that came out when Miles was in his, like, I don't want to call it a sabbatical because it wasn't a sabbatical, but when he was in his drug-induced kind of like solitude for those number of years in the late 70s. And I think the world wanted some Miles recording, so that's when they pulled that out, and that got a lot of notoriety at the time. So I'm glad they finally released it. I like Water Babies a lot.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So yeah.
All right, I'll throw one out here. This might even be my favorite Wayne Shorter solo record. It's hard to pick a favorite amongst these, but I'm going to go with 1966's "Speak No Evil," which again, I mean, we've talked about this lineup before, but Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Wayne on tenor, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, and Elvin Jones. And it's another Blue Note release. And I think this is an essential album for anybody who loves Wayne's work in the Miles Davis Quintet. So if you like ESP and you like Miles Smiles and all those records, you have to have this because it kind of sits in the same ballpark. The interplay between these guys, I mean, Witch Hunt is a classic track.
Great tune.
So
Absolutely great tune.
so good. Fee Fi Fo Fum, really good. I mean, Dance Cadaverous just shifts and swirls all over the place. I love the interplay between the guys on the title track, which is really good. You got Infant Eyes, which is a little more laid back and melodic, really nice tune. And then Wildflower is so good. Hubbard is great on this. He's just an amazing player anyway. But I
Mhm.
think this has got really great songwriting. And again, he wrote everything on here. And great arrangements, top-notch playing, an absolute classic. I would say this for those watching this who really want to start beefing up their Wayne Shorter collection, especially the solo stuff. This is a buy or die right here. Great stuff.
Do you know on the cover, is that his first wife, Taruka Gani?
I always thought it was. I don't know if they say anything here on the.
Because they split in 1964, actually. They split up. And Infant Eyes actually was dedicated to their daughter, Miyako. And most of the earlier Blue Note albums, or some of the mid '60s Blue Note albums that he recorded, he published under the title Miyako Music.
Gotcha.
That was their only child.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was her photo. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might be. I'd have to look it up. But great album nonetheless. All right, what do you got?
So now I'm going to shift away from Miles and back to a solo album by Wayne. This, you know, as a musician myself and performer, composer, so forth, I always thought it was the most important thing that you can do as a musician is to be true to yourself, to your life, and represent yourself through your music. Right? I think Wayne did that, better than most. Wayne was Wayne, and Wayne, whatever's going on in his life, he's kind of showcasing that through his music, or trying to be his very best. Speak through the music, so to speak.
Yep.
And this one was highly influenced by his second wife, Anna Maria. So this is in the 70s. This came out in 1974, and she was from Brazil, and her family had their own customs and their own, different lifestyle that he wasn't used to or whatever. So he wrote this album dedicated to her and her family and so forth, and the influence that she had. They had a daughter together, Iska, who passed away at the age of 14. She had grand mal seizures since she was born. And so it was a very troubling time during his life to witness this and be on the road while his daughter was home suffering. They couldn't figure out how to stop the seizures, and eventually it killed her. So that's a little backstory. The album with Milton Nascimento is called, let's see if you could see it, Native Dancer. Okay. My favorite Wayne Shorter tune of all time, Beauty and the Beast, which is so out of character for the rest of the songs on this album. And I just don't know who the Beast was. You know, maybe the Beast was what he envisioned was inside his daughter.
Could be, yeah.
You know, I don't know, and I'll never know who will. But if I had more time, I could have researched that one better, Pete. But that tune is funky, and yet it's beautiful in the midsection, and it's just a real, nice thing to showcase the funk side. Of course, Herbie Hancock was playing piano on this whole album. The Brazilian voice with the Portuguese influence of Milton Nascimento singing, and there's songs about all of the family members on here. So very different than anything that you'll ever find anywhere else in Wayne's catalog. And I think a good autobiographical statement about what was going on in his life during the mid 70s, late 70s.
Kind of cool to hear him discovering funk a little bit, right? I think,
Yeah.
I think he, I mean, obviously Weather Report did a little bit of that here and there during the latter stages of the 70s. So kind of
Yeah.
see into that. Cool. All right. Let me throw, yeah, so I'm going to throw a weird one out here as well. So this is a, I almost wasn't going to pick this one today, but I like it because it is so different to probably anything else we're going to talk about. And this one was released in 1979, I'm sorry, 1969, and it is a Supernova.
Hmm.
So this also was on Blue Note, but so this is right smack in the middle of In a Silent Way, Bitches Brew era. And
Yeah.
he's got with him, and I don't think, honestly, I don't think he ever did another album like this. He's got John McLaughlin and Sonny Sharrock on guitars, Chick Corea playing drums and vibes, not even playing keyboards on here, Miroslav Vitous on bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, and Airto Moriera on percussion. This is totally like avant-garde fusion. It's way noisier and chaotic than In a Silent Way. Maybe not as groovy and tribal as Bitches Brew, so it's kind of somewhere in the middle. There's just like nasty shards of McLaughlin guitars all over here. And Wayne is just playing like scream. I mean, this is not an album for those who like to hear the wonderful Wayne Shorter melodies. This is screaming sax Wayne Shorter throughout this whole thing. Sweet Pea is really cool. Like I said, Water Babies is on here as well. You got Capricorn on here, The Great Dindy, which I think is pronounced Gingy, but it's spelled Dindy. Really, really good album. But again, it's chaotic, it's kind of noisy, but it's definitely dark and exciting. So if you want to hear like Wayne Shorter and kind of like a little bit of a different format to a lot of the other stuff that we're talking about today, I knew this one would stick out like a sore thumb, but it's definitely very cool. Check this one out, Supernova, well worth seeking out. Good stuff.
Cool. I'm not familiar
Angry
with
and
that.
violent. Yeah, it's
I'm gonna have
definitely,
to check that one out. Yeah.
yeah.
That came out right after, well, it was recorded right after, according to the discography, right after Schizophrenia. It's interesting.
Very different.
Yeah. And a year before Weather Report was founded.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Because that first Weather Report album is definitely very Miles influenced, I think.
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
All right. So, moving on to, let's see, the Weather Report years. Um, of course, the first one I'm going to have to point out for me here is the classic Heavy Weather. You know, that was their most famous early release once they had Jocko in the band, and that was probably their most popular one. What I find interesting about this is that Shorter, Jocko, Zawinul, all were composers.
Yep.
In this of the tunes on here, so it was kind of a shared effort, and just an all around great album, released in 1977. And of course, you know, Toontown, Harlequin, and of course, Zawinul's tune Birdland was the highlights for me for this album. Also, the Palladium, that was a shorter composition, but just a real great fusion album at the time when this band was coming into prominence, you know, in the mid-70s.
You ever wonder, I mean, the catalog of Weather Report is so fascinating, because I think like when you go, you know, like the self-titled album and I Sing the Body Electric are kind of like two of a pair, but then you got like Sweet Nighter and Mysterious Traveler and Tailspin, and they kind of go together. The band's getting a little more funky, the music's getting a little bit more accessible. You know, Jocko comes on board for half of Black Market, and then you got this album, which was the big album, and then you got Mr. Gone and Night Passage. I just sometimes felt once Jocko joined the band that Wayne maybe felt a little stifled to bring more compositions to the band because you had, like you mentioned, you got those three strong songwriters all trying to get their music on each album. I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes felt like as the band kind of got on into the, you know, later in the 70s into the 80s that he maybe was feeling a little kind of pushed to the side from the being able to contribute compositions to the band. I don't know. That's just the impression I always got.
Yeah, they made a pretty good argument supporting what you just said in the TV documentary. Um, Jocko was a showman.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Zawinul, you know, has a distinctive style, but when you put the two of them together, Jocko was kind of flamboyant, let's say, to say the least, a presence on stage that was very showy and didn't leave a lot of holes for Wayne to be creative. And I think they said, even on the documentary, that Wayne felt a little bit stifled by the presence of Jocko when Jocko kind of took over the band.
Well, because he became the de facto soloist, right? Because if you
Yeah.
look at the bass players before Jocko came in, so you've got Miroslav Vitus and Alfonso Johnson. I'm trying to remember if anybody else was in there. They're not that kind of bass player. And all of a sudden, so in the early stuff, you would have um, Zawinul and Shorter would be the main soloists for the most part. Now all of a sudden, you got this, you know, bass player who he wants to play and he wants to show you how amazing it is. And this is not disrespect to Jaco Pastorius because I love him. He also was having substance abuse and mental issues, mental health issues in time. So he was like very forceful person in that band. And I can just see Wayne kind of like taking a step back. It's like, all right, well, he's trying to do his thing. Let me not step on any toes because I don't think Wayne was that kind of guy. And I think that caused a little bit of friction in the band.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll notice towards after the 80s, if you listen to the Wayne catalog, you'll find very distinctively, especially after he switched exclusively to soprano and stopped playing tenor, you know, in his later years, he's got this kind of less is more kind of a disposition where he really is, the flash is gone, and his lines are very sparse, and he says only what he wants you to hear and
Yeah.
holds the rest in. So to me, that's a kind of a stylistic shift that maybe he was fed up with, like Jaco playing all over the place and not leaving. And sometimes it changes a person and it changes the way you think. If the mature Wayne Shorter didn't waste a single note,
Right.
not that notes before were wasted, they weren't wasted on anyone, but he had a lot to say. And as he got older and wiser,
Yeah.
he kind of toned it down. He said, "No, I'm not going to be another Jaco." You know, not
We
that there's
talked, we
anything wrong
talked
with that.
about this. Remember, we did the Four Fusion Friday show a number of months ago, and one of the albums was a later period Wayne Shorter album. And all
Yes,
four of us kind of commented that this is the way more laid back and conservative Wayne Shorter compared to 10, 15, 20 years before. Right?
yeah. So one of my favorites,
Oh, great live album. Yeah.
it's the live album. I know we don't usually do live talk about live albums, but this is with Peter Erskine, in the band, and all the great tunes from it's kind of like a greatest hits is what they wanted to showcase live. I think Wayne's playing on here is phenomenal on this whole thing. It's my favorite weather report because live music, of course, is live music.
Yeah.
You can't duplicate it. The feeling and the energy from the crowd and whatnot. But anyway, that's my last comment on weather report.
You could make the argument, Mike, that like if someone to come up to you and say, I want to start listening to Weather Report, where should I start? Even though there's some killer studio records, I could easily, Mysterious Traveler, the first album, Black Market, Heavy Weather, you can name any of them. But I would to get like a nice retrospective of their whole career, you could give them that live album, the 8:30 live album, and you can give them the Live in Tokyo live album, which covers the early lineup. And right there, you've got your intro to Weather Report because you've got the latter stuff and the early stuff all in two live sets.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
Cool. All right. So done with Weather Report. Where are you going to take us next?
Okay, I've got two more left, and one honorable mention. So we're going to go into the 70s. This is a collaboration. Again, it's another live album, and this is a group he formed with Freddie Hubbard and Herbie, VSOP. This is a live album which features Herbie, Tony Williams, Wayne, Freddie, and Ron Carter on side one and side two. I mean, Eye of the Hurricane, Nefertiti, Maiden Voyage, and then sides 3 and 4 feature different musicians, and Wayne's not on there. It's a two record set, but kind of a reunited Miles' second great quintet without Miles, with Freddie Hubbard instead. That's how I view this group, which was kind of a nice way to bring the boys back together again.
Yeah, I really like that album, and there's a couple of. Did you ever get the Quintet album, the VSOP Quintet album? That's great as well. And
No,
that basically is the Miles Davis Quintet minus Miles with Freddie Hubbard. That's really good. Also, in fact, that's the first one I ever heard from the VSOP like kind of configuration. Really, really good. Great stuff.
okay, and so my last one is more of I couldn't go without Wayne's collaboration with Joni Mitchell,
Great.
which was 10 albums I read up on, and I don't have many of them, but I do have this one, which, again, Wayne is not prominent in this. The music is by Charles Mingus, and the album is called Mingus.
Yep.
Joni Mitchell Mingus. Features Joni Mitchell's artwork and Wayne just playing soprano saxophone. Jaco is also, it's basically Weather Report with Joni Mitchell.
Yep.
So I said I wasn't going to talk about Weather Report. I guess I lied.
It's not technically a weather report.
It's not technically under Weather Report's name, but it's sure it sounds like Weather Report, playing these Mingus tunes.
Yeah.
which he wrote for Joni Mitchell. So really great, a Goodbye Pork Pie Hat and the Dry Cleaner from Des Moines with a snappy horn arrangement by Jocko. And Wayne's playing soprano on here, and he's just, again, sparse playing, but very meaningful. And he's like a painter, I think. He's just, he's like Jackson Pollock here. He's just putting splashes on the canvas, and you're going, holy cow, does that add something? And he's not the star. He's the background, and he's just throwing splashes, but boy, are they meaningful when he has something to say. This is later in 1977, I think.
Yeah, so or 78, early 70.
70, 77, 78, yeah, somewhere in there. Uh,
And for those folks who want to investigate that album, and I highly recommend
79, 1979.
79. Okay. The album right before that one,
Yeah,
Wayne also plays on another Joni Mitchell album called Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. He plays on a couple tracks on that. That's also very good and very jazzy, very similar to the Mingus album, although not with Mingus compositions, obviously. So, but yeah, I mean, we've only really scratched the surface here. I mean, he's played on a ton of albums. He's done stuff with Carlos Santana. He's played on Zawinul solo albums. He's played on some McCoy Tyner albums. He's played on Jocko's albums, Milton Nascimento, Lee Morgan. He did a bunch of albums with Lee Morgan. He's played on a ton of Joni Mitchell albums. He played on Ready for Freddie with Freddie Hubbard, which is a great album. And all those Miles albums and all the Weather Report stuff, and like I said, a ton of Art Blakey records. I mean, this guy's what a career he had. What a
yeah,
career.
yeah. Okay, so then my last gasp here is for something that was recorded in 1989, and it was kind of a concert that they did, but they live concert recording, and it was with Gil Goldstein, Lenny White, Mikhail Petrucciani, Pete Levine, and Stanley Clark, and it was called the Manhattan Project. So this was released on Blue Note in 1990, and just outstanding. Later, Wayne Shorter replaced tenor and soprano on this, and again, this is my favorite of the, let's say, the end of the 20th century Wayne. After he was done with Weather Report and Miles and all the rest of that, this is him with the top, one of the top groups of that time. During the early 90s, I'd say late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
I've never heard that, and I'm looking it up right now. I need to go check that out because I've often heard of it, but I've never listened to it. I mean, that's obviously a great lineup.
Yeah. It's a fun show to watch too. It's a live video, so you can check it out
Gotta do that.
on YouTube. Actually,
Everything's on YouTube, right? Everything's on YouTube.
all the damn time.
All the damn time, right? And so a couple other notable things too. I mean, he did play a little bit on Steely Dan's Asia, right?
Yeah,
You get that. For our fusion fans, he also played on Japanese guitar player Kazumi Watanabe's Kilowatt album. George LeMay is probably watching. He's like, yeah, you got to mention that. I'm like, I will. He played on Bridges to Babylon, the Rolling Stones album. I mean, yeah, it's just played on Don Henley's End of Innocence album. His discography is just absolutely ridiculous. There's just so much on here and all styles of music. So just
yeah.
so I think we gave Wayne justice today, Mike. What do you think?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, so for folks watching, hopefully we gave you some good history on the career of Wayne Shorter and his compositions and a lot of the albums he appeared on. And maybe we've given you some directions to go and start your Wayne Shorter listening journey because I think discovering new music by artists we either don't know or maybe we know a little bit is always a good thing. And we'll be bringing Mike back on that. Mike, what do you think? We think we should do a Blue Note episode in a couple months?
Sure.
I think that's yeah. I think we should do that because it's such a storied label and there's so many legendary albums that came out on Blue Note Records over the years. So all right, that's in the books. So Mike and I will do that probably does June work maybe?
Sure.
June time frame? Okay. because I have one other one scheduled for next month in May, and then Mike and I'll be back in June with Blue Note Records. So Mike, your homework is start thinking of your 10 favorite Blue Note releases of all time. I know it's gonna be hard, right? It's gonna be near.
Oh man, why are you stuck on 10?
I don't know. You want to do five or you want to do more? I don't know.
No, I mean, it's hard to narrow it down to 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember some of the past shows I said, Pete, how can I, like the show we did on Michael Brecker,
Oh, yeah, it's
how
impossible.
could I narrow it down? The guy had like 17 pages,
I know.
computer pages of recordings,
I
and you
know.
want me to pick 10?
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
Eight?
Hard. I can give you less homework, and we could do five, but then you will suffer trying to do
No,
five.
then
It's trying to pick this.
I will just burn my. You'll see smoke coming out of my head instead of you know.
It's hard. I know. It's near impossible. I mean, Blue Note Records is just so. I mean, when Ken Gold and I did the ECM label, that was hard enough. I think Blue Note's going to be even harder
You
because
want to pick a time period? Well, when was Blue Note? When was Blue Note first on the scene, on the jazz scene? Was it Alfred Lyon who started the label?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we probably should do this. Let me look it up right now. Because I mean, we literally could probably just do the 60s, right? Yeah, because I mean, it started in 1939, so we're not going to go. We probably won't go that far back. Or do we want to do like 55 to 69 or something like that? I mean,
How about one from each decade?
one from each decade. So the first ever official Blue Note release from the 7000 series was 1951. So, well, you want to do five from the 50s and five from the 60s? I don't know, Mike. We don't have to decide today. We can kind
Let's
of.
not decide. Maybe your listeners will chime in and comment and see what they prefer. Let's go with
So there you have it, everybody.
what
So
the demand is.
yes. So in addition to commenting about Wayne Shorter and his career down in the comments below, if you have a preference of where you want to see Mike and I dedicate some of our, efforts for the next step for the Blue Note episode, just let us know. Like I said, I'm looking through. There's great stuff in the 50s. There's incredible stuff in the 60s. I mean,
I'm thinking the 80s and 90s even. There's great Blue Note records.
so does it make sense to do two from each decade? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
All right.
We have almost 2 months to figure it out. So we'll figure it out. Yeah, it's a daunting task. I'm looking through this stuff and I'm like, oof, man, that's a ton of releases.
And you understand how I'm going to be partial to one artist in particular who had 28 Blue Note releases.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. There's a lot of really notable musicians that spent their careers on this label. So that's okay. I mean, yeah, I'm just going, Horace Silver, Hank Mobley, Larry Young, Grant Green, Dexter Gordon, Herbie Hancock. I mean, Freddie Hubbard.
I don't know.
I'm just going through. It's just, and a lot of the same names just keep popping up. Wayne Shorter, Don Cherry, Hank Mobley. I mean, Stanley Turrentine. The list goes on and on and on. I've only mentioned a couple of them. It's just
Joe
great.
Henderson.
Yep. Donald Byrd, Jimmy Smith,
Coltrane.
Coltrane, Art Blakey, for crying out loud. Oh, this is going to be impossible. Well, it'll be fun.
Bono.
Joe Lovano, yes. Which, as a matter of fact, I have Joe Lovano's new record sitting in my inbox that I have to review. I promised the label I would get to it. Joe, if you're watching, I'm going to get to it real soon. Trust me, I will. Oh man. So anyway, so that'll be fun. So look forward to that in June, folks. Mike and I will be back on another episode of Talkin' Jazz. We'll be talking all about Blue Note Records. We'll give you a little bit of history and we'll talk about some of our favorite releases on the label. So that's coming up. Mike, you've got some stuff going on with new album, right? You want to talk to people about stuff that
Well,
you
sure. You're going to give me an opportunity for a shameless plug here.
Yep.
So the band's name is Home at Last, and we have two recordings out. One released 2023 called The Last Restaurant, and one released last year called There You Are. We have a new recording in the works, which will be released hopefully by that June timeframe when I'm back, when I come back. By that time, we're in production right now, so hopefully when everything gets printed and whatever, we'll have some kind of a June or July release. And that one goes by the title of Fake News. which is predominantly stories about modern technology and misleading practices. So, anyway, that's all I can say about that for the time being.
Sounds good.
But and then there's always for the jazz folks who are mostly just interested in jazz. I still have these two albums available. That's me from a much younger day.
I was gonna say, look at that.
Yeah, that's from 2005. That's Woody and Me, Michael's Jazz Quartet. And this one, which you reviewed for me a while back. In fact, you wrote the liner notes
Yep, I did.
for this one, Mike Antonelli and Friends, which is a compilation of two live recordings and special guest artist who I'm not at liberty to name is on here. But if you go back in the notes, I said his name before just a few seconds ago. So anyway, that's all I can say about that. And you can give
And
my
those are still available?
These are available. Yeah, just email me, and I'll give you the PayPal with your address. I'll give you the PayPal account to send the money to, and I'll send it right out to you in the U.S. mail.
And which email address should they use, Mike? I'll put it down in the
All
comments.
right, you can put down the orangecountyhops@gmail.com. It's probably the easiest one to remember.
Okay. orangecountyhops@gmail.com. I'll drop that in the comments below, folks, so you can, if you want to go check. Both of those albums great, by the way. So
Thank you.
you'll enjoy them if you go and investigate them. So cool. All right, well, that's a wrap. Wayne Shorter, let us know what you think of the great Wayne Shorter down in the comments below. And like I said, if you go and investigate any of these albums that you hadn't heard before, come back and let us know what you thought of them. So that's always good to read everybody's feedback on the music that we're talking about. And we'll see Mike back here in 2 months for Blue Note Records. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time.
Damn time.
Stay tuned next month. We'll be bringing Scott Berry on board. We are going to be talking about Thelonious Monk. So that's coming up in about 30 days. So stay tuned for that and more here on the channel. I am Pete Pardo for Mike Antonelli. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.